Man, one of the most difficult things, especially early on, to wrap our minds around when it comes to EQ is how do we get that low end to play nice? And to be honest, sometimes the problem with our low end not being nice is not even what we're doing, it's the environment that we're in, right? Low end is if you don't have a properly treated room or you don't have monitors that can reproduce sound below a certain frequency, or maybe you don't have, quality headphones that can really produce a low end. Sometimes we're just not able to deal with stuff because we're just not hearing it, right? And that's where you start getting into the car test and your mix sounds great where you're mixing, but then you get in the car and it just sounds like a bunch of boomy trash, right? Because sometimes you're just not hearing the low end, right? And so the first tip or talking point here concerning low end is try to get yourself in an environment where you can actually hear the low end. And sometimes early on, that might mean jumping back and forth between your mixing environment and the car, right? Maybe you're just starting out. You don't have a lot of equipment, right? When I first started mixing, right, I did not have a controlled space like I'm in right now. I was literally in the middle of my apartment in between the kitchen and the living room with a deep hallway behind me. I was not hearing low end at all the way I should have in that space. And so I had to, I didn't have the best monitors, right? I didn't have the best stuff. So I had to jump back and forth between the house and the car and different things to really be able to hear those different things, right? And of course I had to be educated and start to know kind of what to do. Many years have passed, and thank God the Lord has blessed me to be able to be in a more controlled space and have better monitors and better headphones and be able to get some education and all that kind of thing. But if you're just starting off, you got to do what you got to do, right? So you might have to listen to your mix in the house and then go to the car and listen to it, and that's fine. I don't ever let anyone talk down to you about where you are. Work with what you have, right? And begin to build yourself up, right? I hope that encouraged you. I wasn't meaning to go there, but I just want to encourage you, right? Don't let anyone talk down to you and make you think that if you don't have all this stuff, right, you can't make quality music or do quality things, all right? You can work what you have where you have it, right? So that's the first thing, right? That's free. The rest of this video might cost you something, but that point is free, right? Be encouraged with that. All right, but once you get your space together or kind of figure out how to do that, how do we technically make things that live in the low end play nice together, right? You might have a kick drum and a bass guitar. You might also have some like low end synths that are happening, right? How do I know how to make all that stuff play nice, right? And so that's what we're going to take a look at here in this video. And we're going to look specifically at a kick drum and a bass and kind of just look at some things on the fly. And then I'm going to take you into an actual finished mix, and I'm going to show you what things I did there in between the bass and that same bass and kick drum, but then also some other low-end instruments that are in that mix. How did I make them all play nice together, right? So this is going to be really, really good, and I think it's going to be helpful to you. Please take a moment and like this video. Please take a moment and subscribe to this channel and share it with folks. And we're going to get into this. I think you're really going to appreciate this. All right, let's get into it.
McCray Music.
All right, so let's take a look at some EQ choices that we can use here to get a kick and a bass to work well together. And let's just listen to what we have here. All right, so we have a kick and a bass, and there's some synergy here, but obviously we do have some work to do. So let's take a look at some things we could do here and in just kind of test environment. And then I'm going to jump over to the actual finished mix for that all this stuff, including the vocals and the guitar, came from. And we'll take a look at what I did to make the low end work there. All right. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make a decision. All right. everything can't live in the low end, right? If we pull up, let's pull up some EQ here. Let's pull up our Pro Q4. And let's just look at, let's turn, I'm going to turn our high pass off here. Let's actually go to our mix view. And let's just look at what's happening here. And we'll put them side by side instead of overlaying them. Let's put them side by side. And let's just look at what's happening here in the low end. This is the bass, this is the kick. All right, we can clearly see they're living in the same space. All right, that they're both living in the same space. It's all down in our low end. So the first thing we need to do is make a decision because everything can't live down there. So what do we want to occupy space? And that is going to depend upon the song, the style, the production, what you're using, right? Here, because I'm dealing with a synth bass, I really want the synth bass to kind of occupy a lot of this low end stuff below, below like 60 hertz here. I want the synth bass to do that. If I was dealing with a finger bass, I would probably make a different decision. Finger basses are going to be more mid-range heavy and things like that. So sometimes you might think that the bass, they really boosted the low end on the bass, and they really didn't. It's the kick that's driving stuff. And a lot of that energy from a finger bass is coming from your low mids and your mid-range, all right? But here's with this heavy synth Moog bass, I want that to take the low end. So with that being said, the first thing I'm going to do actually is look at where the energy or the punch for my kick is coming from. I want to find that frequency. So let's just focus in on the kick here, and let's see where the punch from our kick is coming. It look just from the spectral analyzer, it looks like it's coming from around 60 hertz. So let's see. Right in here. All right, so that's good energy that's happening there, the kick. Let's just solo the kick for a sec, and let's just see what else is happening. That's actually more like 48. All right, so the kick has a nice little low end right here. Right in there. So here's what I'm going to do. It's about 50, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my bass, and I'm going to actually carve out that section. So I'm going to come over to the bass here. Let's get rid of that. Let's come over to our bass EQ, and let's carve out, and I'm going to do it with the kick in. I'm going to come over to about 50 hertz. And let's carve a little bit of that out. All right, immediately when I do that, I can hear the kick and the bass playing a little bit nicer with each other, right? Why? Because I'm making room for the kick to occupy this area, bringing this down a little bit and letting the kick live in that space. That's immediately working a bit better. All right. Now, we said that we want the synth bass to live down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my kick. Let's roll a little bit. Let's actually put a high pass here on our kick. Let's roll off a little bit of this kick from the bottom here. That's good. All right. Now, the other thing I'm going to do in my kick is my bass here, and I'm going to overlay these so I can stop jumping back and forth. But let's go ahead and overlay our bass here. And let's look at some of the mid-range things that are going on in the kick, because we might want to kill some of that. All this in here. See how much better that is now? Let's play it again. Much better, much better. So this is what we would do. All right. We would take a look and kind of listen and ear listen, earball and eyeball what actually is happening, and find, make some decisions about what areas we want to carve out. And we would need to continue to do this for our entire low end. Any instrument that's operating down here, we would need to do. So let's jump over to the actual finished mix for this and look at the decisions that I actually made in the final mix. All right, so here we are in the finished mix. And let's just, I'm going to get rid of the vocals here. And let's just focus in. We'll get rid of the effects and stuff too. And let's just focus in on the instrumental and hear what the low end sounds like. Let's actually go to that same part of the song that we were just listening to, where that kick comes in at. And let's see what it sounds like. As we can hear, the low end sounds really clear. I can hear everything. So let's look at what's going on with our low end instruments. First of all, with our kick here. So we have our EQ, and you can see here that I did a similar thing as to what I just did and I didn't look at this before I did the example, but you see I did a similar thing. We actually boosted a little bit of that at 57 hertz here, and we carved out some of that low end, and then we also boosted up top here to get a little bit of the top end of the kick included as well. All right, so that's cool. Let's see what else we have here. Another thing that I did is, because sometimes it's more than just EQ. I know we're focusing on EQ. So that was the start, but then I wanted to kill some of the tail of the kick because the bass was so resonant. I wanted to kill some of the tail of the kick, so I used a transient plugin called Transient Master to pull back on some of the sustain of the kick. All right. So we got that going on, and then here we have some compression that's happening. That's more for the sound. That's not really helping it play with the low end. All right, so that's what's going on there on the kick. Let's see what's going on here on the bass, right? In our bass here, we can see I've actually carved out several things here. And I actually, in this mix here, I've still got this living, but I kind of dialed that back a bit down here. I carved out some 200 here, and this is probably not so it plays nice with the kick, but I do have some pads and some things like that, some sign pads and stuff in this song that there's a lot of energy in here. So again, making decisions. I made a decision early on. All right, these pads that I have, I need those to kind of take over some of the warmth here in the low mids in this 200K range, right? So I carved some of that out. I carved out here where the kick was hitting. And then over here, looks like I made a decision to pull down some of the low end, some of the subs and things that are going on in there as well, right? What else did I do? This is probably compressor. Yep, got a compressor to kind of get a level sound. And then I have a multi-band compressor here. And then here I am kind of ducking down some of this in here as well. I'm not sure why I did that. Let's see what that's actually doing. Okay, I remember. So there were certain parts where the bass is in that frequency was kind of sticking out, punching out a little bit. So I'm using this to kind of just push that down when it goes over a certain limit. All right. So again, I know we're focusing on EQ here, but when we're dealing with playing, having the low end kind of glued together completely, right? These are decisions that we're making, starting with EQ, but then sometimes we're using other things like transient plugins. Maybe we're using a multi-band compressor or things like that to get things to play nice. Okay, I hope that was helpful to you, and I really hope that's kind of starting to demystify that whole low end for you. Remember, everything can't live everywhere. You're gonna have to make choices, right? And this was some of the advantages, to be honest with you, that a lot of older engineers had back when we didn't have unlimited tracks and they were mixing to tape, and they had to make decisions in the recording process. Right? That's why a lot of times you listen to like those older Motown records and things like that. There's a lot of clarity and things, happening in the low. They made a lot of those decisions in the recording process because they didn't have, they're working with 8 tracks, 12 tracks, 24 tracks, right? They didn't have unlimited tracks in Pro Tools or whatever you're working with to, we can go in and just add as many as we want. They couldn't do that. So they had to make those decisions early on. We now have too much freedom, and sometimes that can cause you to get in trouble. So you got to make decisions. What's going to live at what spot? Carve those different spots out, or just completely get that energy out. Remember that high pass filter, rolling a lot of that stuff off in your vocals or your other instruments where we don't need that stuff down there. Past 125, roll that stuff off, and then start making decisions within the instruments and the sources that you want to actually live down there, right? Practice. Try this stuff out with some things on your own. You can get all kinds of low-end instruments and low-end things, tons of 808s and basses and things like that online that you can download, and of course right in your DAW. I'm sure you already have a lot of those things. Play around with them and start learning how to get them to play nice together. All right, this is fantastic. We are going to continue talking about EQ. There is still much more to talk about. We still have not talked about dynamic EQ really. I talked about it very quickly in passing. We have not talked about mid-side EQ. There's still lots of stuff to talk about, and so we are going to do that in our coming videos. All right, please feel free to like this video and subscribe to this channel. See you guys again soon in another video. All right.